The stars belonged to the Kthvar. Everyone in the galaxy knew this simple fact. For 3,000 years, their massive ships had sailed between worlds, bringing order to chaos and strength to the weak. Their empire stretched across 847 planets, each one filled with creatures that bowed their heads when the great ships arrived. War Prince Zethka stood 12 feet tall in his battle armor, his forearms crossed as he looked out at the newest world they had found. His chitinous skin gleamed under the bridge lights, each plate harder than the steel these new creatures used to build their pathetic ships. Behind him, his officers waited in perfect silence. They knew better than to speak before their prince gave them permission. "Tell me about these humans again," Zethka said, his voice like grinding stone. Commander Veloth stepped forward, his own armor clicking against the metal floor. "They call themselves humans, my prince. They come from a small blue world at the edge of the spiral arm. Their ships are slow and primitive. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles. They have no natural armor, no claws, no real size to speak of." Zethka turned one of his eyes toward his commander, while keeping the other three focused on the view screen. It was a gesture that made lesser species tremble, but Veloth had served for 2 centuries. He knew his place. "How many worlds do they control?" the War Prince asked. 17 colonies, all small. Their biggest settlement has perhaps 2 million individuals. Their homeworld holds maybe 8 billion. Veloth consulted his datapad. "They discovered space travel only 300 years ago. Compared to us, they are infants." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Outside the massive windows, 2 human colony ships drifted in the void. They looked like metal boxes with engines attached to them. No elegance, no beauty, no sign of the power that came with being born to rule. Zethka had seen this same scene play out hundreds of times before. A new species would venture into space, proud of their little achievements. They would build their colonies and think themselves mighty. Then the Kthvar would arrive, and reality would crush their dreams. "Have they responded to our arrival?" he asked. "Yes, my prince. They sent a communication requesting what they call diplomatic contact. They wish to meet and discuss trade agreements." Veloth's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "They seem to think we are here to negotiate." Several officers made the low, rumbling sound that passed for laughter among their kind. The idea that prey would try to negotiate with predators was always entertaining. It showed how little these creatures understood about the natural order of things. "Send them our standard message," Zethka commanded. "Tell them they will submit to the Empire or be destroyed. Give them 1 solar rotation to decide." "It will be done, my prince." The War Prince turned his attention back to the human ships. They were so small. His own vessel could destroy both of them with a single shot from its primary weapon. The humans probably knew this. Every species did, eventually. That was what made the galaxy work so smoothly. The strong ruled, the weak obeyed, and everyone knew where they stood. Zethka had been born on the Kthvar homeworld of Kthvalen, in the great hatchery beneath the Palace of Strength. From his first day, he had learned the fundamental truth that governed all life. Power was the only thing that mattered. Not intelligence, not creativity, not compassion. Power. The power to take what you wanted and destroy what threatened you. His species had learned this lesson long ago, when they were still crawling in the mud of their birth world. They had fought and eaten their way to the top of their food chain. When they reached the stars, they had done the same thing on a galactic scale. Every world that resisted was burned. Every species that fought back was broken. Those that survived learned to serve. The communication system chimed softly. Veloth moved to answer it, then turned back to his prince. "The humans have sent a reply, my prince." "Already? Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered, then showed the face of a human. Zethka studied the creature with interest. It had only 2 eyes, both facing forward like a predator, but they were small and weak. Its skin was soft and pink with no natural protection. Hair grew from the top of its head in an untidy mass. When it spoke, its voice was high and thin compared to the deep rumble of Kthvar speech. "Greetings. I am Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Colonial Defense Force. We have received your message and appreciate your contact. However, we cannot accept your terms. We are prepared to discuss trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and mutual cooperation treaties. We hope you will consider peaceful coexistence instead of threats." The transmission ended. For a long moment, the bridge was completely silent. Then Zethka began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. It echoed through the ship like the roar of some ancient beast full of hunger and cruelty. His officers joined in. their voices creating a chorus that would have terrified any creature with sense. "Did you hear that?" Zethka gasped between bursts of laughter. "They think they can negotiate. They think we care about their boundaries." He wiped moisture from one of his eyes. "This Admiral Torres actually believes we want to coexist with them." "Shall I prepare the attack fleet, my prince?" Veloth asked. "Yes, but make it small. We do not want to waste resources on such pitiful prey. Take 2 battlecruisers and 4 destroyers. That should be more than enough to deal with their entire colonial fleet." Zethka paused, considering. "Actually, make it 3 destroyers. I want to see how long they last. And the ground assault? Standard procedure. Land, kill the fighters, enslave the survivors. Add their worlds to the Empire. Their species will serve as laborers. They look soft enough for the crystal mines." Veloth bowed his great head. "It will be done, my prince." As his officers began preparing for battle, Zethka returned his attention to the human ships. Soon they would learn what every other species in the galaxy already knew. The Kthvar were the apex predators of the universe. They were the alpha species, the ultimate evolution of strength and will. The humans were about to discover their place in the natural order. They would kneel, or they would die. There was no third option. There never had been. In the depths of space, the great war machines of the Empire began to move. Another conquest was about to begin. Another species was about to learn the truth about power. The Kthvar owned the stars, and they always would. The attack came at dawn on New Geneva colony. The human settlers watched through their windows as dark shapes descended from the sky like falling meteors. The Kthvar ships moved with terrible grace, their biometal hulls gleaming in the morning light. They had done this dance so many times before. Admiral Torres stood in the command center of the Colonial Defense Station, watching her tactical display with growing dread. 6 Kthvar vessels against her small fleet of patrol boats and cargo haulers that had been hastily fitted with weapons. The numbers were not in her favor. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres," she said into her communicator. "Remember the plan. We are not trying to win this fight. We are buying time for the civilians to evacuate to the underground shelters. Every minute we hold them off saves lives." The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness of space. Human missiles streaked toward the alien ships only to splash harmlessly against energy shields that rippled like water. In return, beams of superheated plasma tore through the human vessels like paper. 3 ships died in the first 30 seconds. Captain Maria Santos piloted her patrol boat in a desperate weaving pattern, trying to avoid the deadly beams that reached out for her. Her ship shuddered as a near miss boiled away half her hull plating. "This is Falcon 7, she called over the radio. "I'm hit bad but still flying. Someone needs to tell these aliens they picked the wrong species to mess with." Her ship exploded 2 seconds later, but not before she managed to ram it into a Kthvar destroyer. The alien vessel survived, but its shields flickered and died. Santos had drawn first blood. On the surface of New Geneva, the colonists had prepared as best they could. Mayor Jackson Hayes had been a soldier once before he retired to help build this small world at the edge of human space. Now he crouched behind a barricade of overturned vehicles, clutching an old rifle that seemed pitifully small against what was coming. The Kthvar dropships landed like thunder, their doors opening to release creatures from humanity's darkest nightmares. 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor with 4 arms that ended in claws sharp enough to cut steel, they moved with the confidence of apex predators who had never met real resistance. War Prince Zethka stepped from his transport and looked around at the human settlement with mild interest. Small buildings, wide streets, gardens where the creatures tried to grow food. It was all so fragile, so temporary. His species had destroyed thousands of places just like this one. "Remember," he called to his warriors in their clicking language, "we want some alive for questioning and labor, but feel free to enjoy yourselves with the rest." The first wave of Kthvar warriors advanced down the main street, expecting the usual pattern. The prey species would fire a few desperate shots, then run or surrender. When they realized how hopeless their situation was, a few might hide, but they would be found eventually. It always went the same way. Mayor Hayes waited until the aliens were 50 meters away, then squeezed his trigger. The bullet took the lead warrior in what might have been its center eye. The creature staggered but did not fall. Its armor had absorbed most of the impact. But then something unexpected happened. The human did not run. Instead, he worked the bolt of his rifle and fired again and again. All around the street, more humans emerged from hiding spots and began shooting. Not the wild, panicked fire of terrified prey, but the steady, aimed shots of people who had decided to make their enemies pay for every step. The Kthvar warrior that Hayes had shot in the eye roared and charged toward him, its claws extended. Hayes dropped his rifle and pulled the pins from 2 grenades, holding them against his chest as the alien reached him. The explosion killed them both. Zethka watched in amazement as his warriors began taking casualties. Not many, but more than they had lost in the conquest of the last 10 worlds combined. These humans fought with a strange desperation, as if they actually believed they could win. More disturbing was their willingness to die. Across the settlement, humans were setting off explosive devices in their own homes as his warriors searched them. Others charged his soldiers with nothing but knives, trying to find gaps in their armor. A human female ran straight at a Kthvar squad, screaming something about her children with her arms full of grenades. "Coward prey," Zethka growled, but there was uncertainty in his voice. This was not how prey species were supposed to behave. The battle for New Geneva lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the colony was in Kthvar hands, but at a cost that shocked the invaders. Of the 1,000 warriors who had landed, 87 were dead and more than 200 were wounded. Against a force of barely 3,000 human civilians armed with primitive weapons. Commander Veloth found his prince standing over the body of a human child, who had apparently tried to stab a Kthvar warrior with a kitchen knife. The alien's medical team was still working to save the warrior's life. The knife had found a joint in his armor. "My prince," Veloth said carefully, "we have secured the colony. The surviving humans have been gathered for processing." How many survived? Perhaps 400. The rest chose to die fighting. Zethka stared down at the small body. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever inflicted such casualties on the Kthvar. Most surrendered after losing 10% of their population. These humans had fought until 90% of them were dead. And the space battle? Complete victory, my prince. All human vessels were destroyed, but... Veloth hesitated. They managed to damage 2 of our ships. The destroyer Velkarath will need extensive repairs. Damaged by cargo ships and patrol boats, Zethka said quietly. Veloth, have you ever seen anything like this before? No, my prince. Most species begin surrendering the moment they see our ships. These humans... He gestured at the destruction around them. They fought as if they expected to win, even when it was clear they could not. Zethka walked through the ruins of the human settlement. Everywhere he looked, he saw evidence of desperate resistance. Homemade explosives, barricades built from furniture, firing positions dug into gardens where children had played just hours before. In one house, he found a human family that had barricaded themselves into a basement. The father had shot his wife and 2 children before turning the weapon on himself. A note written in human script lay beside the bodies. Zethka had his translator decode it. "We will not be slaves." For the first time in his long life, War Prince Zethka felt something he did not recognize. Later, he would learn that humans called it unease. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have conquered the first human colony, but recommend caution in future operations. These creatures..." He paused, looking around at the devastation. "These creatures are different." 6 months after the fall of New Geneva, the Kthvar Empire began to understand that something had gone very wrong with their latest conquest. The reports coming from the human frontier made no sense according to everything they knew about how wars were supposed to work. Supreme War Commander Kethmul sat in the great throne room on the homeworld, reading dispatch after dispatch with growing confusion. His massive form was built for intimidation, with ceremonial spikes jutting from his armor and old battle scars covering his natural plating. He had conquered 43 worlds in his lifetime. None of them had ever behaved like this. "Read me the report from Kepler Station again," he commanded his aide. "Yes, Supreme Commander." Fleet Commander Zarek reports successful conquest of the human colony after 18 hours of fighting. Casualties: 347 dead, over 800 wounded. Human survivors: 63 individuals out of an estimated 12,000. Kethmul's 4 eyes narrowed. "And the follow-up report?" The garrison at Kepler Station went silent 3 weeks after occupation. When reinforcements arrived, they found all 700 Kthvar personnel dead. The human survivors had escaped, but they left behind detailed recordings of the execution of our warriors. The recordings were broadcast on all human communication frequencies. The Supreme War Commander stood and began pacing, his claws clicking on the polished stone floor. In the old days, conquering a species was simple. You destroyed their military, occupied their worlds, and within a generation they accepted their place in the empire. The few who resisted were hunted down and eliminated. But these humans were different. They did not seem to understand that they had lost. "What news from the Veltaran sector?" he asked. Supply Convoy 17 was attacked by unknown vessels. All 12 transport ships destroyed, along with their escort of 6 destroyers. The attackers used hit-and-run tactics, striking from long range and then disappearing into an asteroid field. Intelligence suggests human ships, but their technology appears to have improved significantly since first contact. Kethmal stopped pacing. Improved how? Their weapons are now energy-based rather than projectile. Their ships move faster and their shields are troubling. The convoy commander's last message indicated that human vessels were using modified Kthvar technology. That is impossible. Our technology is genetically locked to Kthvar biosignatures. Yes, Supreme Commander. Yet the evidence suggests they have found a way around our safeguards. Deep in the asteroid belt where the convoy had been destroyed, Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the data her engineers had collected from the wreckage. Around her, the crew of the human vessel Retribution worked with quiet efficiency. They had learned much in the past 6 months. Rodriguez had been a cargo hauler pilot before the war. Now she commanded one of humanity's newest warships, built in hidden shipyards using stolen Kthvar technology. The aliens thought their biolocks would protect their secrets, but they had not counted on human ingenuity. "Report," she said to her chief engineer. "We've downloaded their navigation data and fleet positions. Looks like they have a supply depot in the Rigel system, lightly defended. Maybe 200 aliens total. How lightly defended? 4 patrol ships, no more. The aliens still think they're fighting a colonial uprising. They haven't figured out yet that we're not trying to defend our territory anymore." Rodriguez smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Set course for Rigel. Send a message to Hunter Group 7. Tell them to hit the depot at coordinates 47 Alpha while we take the main facility. Leave no survivors." "Understood, Captain." As the Retribution moved through the darkness toward its target, Rodriguez thought about the conversation she had recorded before leaving Earth 6 months ago. Admiral Torres had explained the new human strategy to a room full of ship captains and marine commanders. "We are not going to play their game," the Admiral had said. "They expect us to defend our worlds and fight fair battles. Instead, we are going to do what humans do best. We are going to hunt them." The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. Humanity would abandon the idea of holding territory. Instead, they would strike at Kthvar supply lines, communication networks, and isolated outposts. Every alien death would be recorded and broadcast to show other species that the mighty empire could bleed. Most importantly, they would study every piece of Kthvar technology they could capture. Human engineers worked around the clock to understand and improve upon alien designs. What had taken the Kthvar centuries to develop, humans reverse-engineered in weeks. Rodriguez's thoughts were interrupted by her communications officer. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Terran High Command." "Put it through." Admiral Torres appeared on the main screen, but she looked different now. Her uniform was black instead of blue, and there was something cold in her eyes that had not been there 6 months ago. "All Hunter Group commanders, this is Admiral Torres. I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that the Kthvar have begun executing human prisoners in retaliation for our attacks on their supply lines." Rodriguez felt her jaw tighten. She had expected this. "The good news is that this gives us justification for the next phase of our operation. As of today, we are no longer taking prisoners. Any Kthvar personnel encountered in human space or during raids will be terminated immediately. Furthermore, we have identified 47 Kthvar colony worlds that are lightly defended. We are going to visit each one." The transmission paused and Rodriguez could hear the silence on her bridge. Everyone knew what the Admiral was about to say. "Our objective is not conquest. Our objective is extinction. Every Kthvar world we visit will be sterilized completely. We want their species to understand that attacking humanity was the last mistake they will ever make as a civilization." When the transmission ended, Rodriguez looked around at her crew. They were all volunteers who had lost family or friends in the initial attacks. She saw agreement in their faces and something else, something that would have frightened the Kthvar if they had understood it. Determination. "You heard the Admiral," Rodriguez said quietly. "Set course for our first target. And send a message to all human ships in this sector. The hunting season has officially begun. Back on the Kthvar homeworld, Supreme War Commander Kethmul received the latest intelligence reports with growing alarm. Human ships had been detected in 17 different sectors, all far from any human colony. They were not raiders anymore. They were conducting organized military operations across a front that spanned half the galaxy. How many ships do they have? He demanded. Unknown, Supreme Commander. Intelligence estimates suggest at least 200 vessels, possibly more. They are using construction techniques we do not understand, building ships faster than should be possible. Kethmul studied the tactical display that showed known human ship movements. What he saw made his blood run cold. The attacks were not random. They followed a pattern that suggested detailed knowledge of Kthvar military doctrine and supply routes. They are not fighting like prey, he said slowly. They are fighting like predators, Supreme Commander. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Kthvar Empire was being hunted. Emperor Kthvar stood before the great window of his palace, looking out at the capital city of his empire. For 3,000 years his ancestors had ruled from this very spot. The city stretched to the horizon, filled with the monuments of conquest and the wealth of 1,000 subjugated worlds. It had never been threatened, never been touched by war. Now, for the first time in the history of his species, enemy ships moved through Kthvar space with apparent freedom. Tell me about these humans again, the Emperor commanded. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority, but there was something new in it now. Something his courtiers had never heard before. Fear Chief Science Advisor Veldran approached the throne carefully. His research had consumed the past year as the human threat grew beyond all prediction. What he had learned would have been impossible to believe if the evidence had not been so overwhelming. Great Emperor, I have studied the records of their homeworld that we captured in the early raids. What we discovered explains much about their behavior, but it also— He paused, searching for the right words. It also suggests we may have made a terrible mistake. Explain. Their world Earth is a death planet, my Emperor. The gravity is 30% higher than our standard. The atmosphere contains a corrosive gas they call oxygen, which would kill most species we know. But that is not the worst part. The Emperor turned from the window, his four eyes focusing on his advisor with predatory intensity. Continue. The life forms on their planet evolved in constant competition. Their fossil records show that their species drove dozens of others to extinction through systematic hunting. Giant creatures that ruled their world for millions of years, all gone within centuries of human arrival. They call it the Pleistocene extinction event, and they caused it simply by existing. Veldran activated a holographic display showing Earth's ecosystem. They are persistence hunters, Great Emperor. They do not kill for territory or food alone. They kill by exhausting their prey over vast distances, never stopping, never giving up until their target dies from exhaustion. And once they decide something is a threat, they do not rest until it is completely eliminated. The throne room fell silent except for the clicking of claws on stone as courtiers shifted nervously. The implications were becoming clear. How long do we have? The Emperor asked quietly. Our analysts estimate 18 months before they reach the core worlds, possibly less. Their ship construction rate continues to accelerate beyond our models. They appear to be converting entire asteroid belts into war materiel. Emperor Kthvar closed his eyes and tried to remember the confidence he had felt just 2 years ago, when the first reports of these small creatures had reached his court. They had seemed so insignificant, so easily crushed. What of our other subject species? Surely they understand that their survival depends on our strength. Great Emperor, that is perhaps our greatest problem. The humans have been in contact with 47 of our subject species. They are providing them with weapons, tactics, and what they call independence movements. We now face rebellions on over 200 worlds. General Kthvar, the Empire's greatest military mind, stepped forward. His armor bore the scars of 100 battles, but he had never faced anything like this new enemy. Great Emperor, I must speak plainly. These humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not seek conquest or tribute. They seek our complete destruction. Every engagement follows the same pattern. They strike without warning, kill everything that moves, then disappear before we can respond. Surely our superior technology— They have our technology now, Great Emperor, but they improve it. Their ships are faster than ours, their weapons more efficient. They take our designs and make them better. In 1 year, they have advanced their military capabilities by centuries. The Emperor began pacing, a habit he had developed as the reports grew worse each day. What do your spies tell us about their intentions? We have intercepted their communications, Great Emperor. They have given their campaign a name, the Kthvar Extinction Project. They are not trying to defeat us. They are trying to eliminate our species entirely. The silence that followed was broken by the soft chiming of the communication system. A courier entered the throne room moving with the quick, nervous steps of someone bearing terrible news. Great Emperor. Urgent report from the Outer Rim. The colonies at Veltar 7, Kethluna, and the mining worlds of the Altair system have all gone silent in the past 72 hours. Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures consistent with planetary bombardment. Emperor Kthvar sank back onto his throne. 3 entire star systems, millions of his people gone without even a distress call. The humans were not just winning the war. They were erasing his species from existence. How is this possible? He whispered. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. We conquered everything we encountered. We are the strongest, the most advanced, the most feared. Science advisor Veldron approached the throne cautiously. Great Emperor, I believe we made a fundamental error in understanding. We assumed that because we were the strongest species we had encountered, we were the ultimate evolution of predatory capability. But the humans... He paused, struggling with concepts that challenged everything the Kthvar believed about themselves. The humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Their own planet's weather could destroy cities. Diseases that would wipe out entire Kthvar colonies were just minor inconveniences to them. They competed not just with other species but with their own environment for survival. The Emperor gestured for him to continue. When they reached space, they did not stop evolving. They adapted to vacuum, to radiation, to the cold between stars. But most importantly, they learned to work together in ways we never could. Our empire is held together by fear and domination. Theirs is held together by something they call cooperation. You are saying they are superior to us? I am saying, Great Emperor, that they are what we thought we were. They are the true apex predators of the galaxy. We were simply the strongest species they had not yet encountered. As if summoned by his words, the communication system activated again. This time the message was not from a Kthvar source. A human face appeared on the main display, female, with cold eyes and a slight smile that did not reach them. Greetings, Emperor Kthvar. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Extinction Fleet. By now you have noticed that several of your worlds have become very quiet. This is intentional. We wanted your attention. The Emperor rose from his throne. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of challenge. Human, you dare address me directly? I am the ruler of 800 worlds. Were, Admiral Chen corrected gently. You were the ruler of 800 worlds. Current count is down to about 400 and dropping daily. We are very efficient. What do you want? Nothing. We do not negotiate with vermin. This message is simply to inform you that the Kthvar species has been classified as a threat to galactic peace and marked for extinction. We estimate completion of this project in approximately 14 months. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in stunned silence. General Kthtarn was the first to speak. Great Emperor, we must gather all our forces for a final defense of the homeworld. If we can make the cost too high, no, the Emperor said quietly. You still do not understand. They are not trying to conquer us. They are exterminating us. The cost does not matter to them. They will spend whatever it takes to ensure we cease to exist. Emperor Kthvar looked around at his court, at the wealth and power that had taken millennia to build. All of it was meaningless now. They had encountered something beyond their understanding, beyond their ability to fight. They had met the real apex predators of the galaxy,